will explode. I feel so powerful at that weight class.
MMA fighter Ilia Topuria has grilled Islam Makhachev for moving up in weight before facing him and gears up to fight Charles Oliveira next. UFC CEO Dana White confirmed that Islam Makhachev would move up to the welterweight division to face Jack Della Maddalena. White further mentioned that despite being a dominant force at lightweight, Islam was no longer a heavy favorite, as oddsmakers saw this fight as even. Dana added that Jack recently secured a fight of the night win and showed no signs of wear, making him a strong opponent. Dana emphasized that the matchup is official, though the exact date and time will be announced later.
Gonna move up to the welterweight division to face Jack Della Maddalena. What do we all love about Islam? If he had moved up to fight Bilal, he was a 5-1 favorite. Moving up to fight Jack, the odds makers have this fight at even. This guy is a beast. Jack obviously coming off fight of the night performance, beating Bilal, winning the title. He didn't take any major damage in that fight, so he's accepted the fight. I'll let you guys know when I pick a time and date, but this fight is definitely happening.
Dana White then announced the UFC 317 event for June 28th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas during International Fight Week. He stated that the card will feature Ilia Topuria moving up to lightweight to fight former champion Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title.
Now, UFC 317 International Fight Week, June 28th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. You all know Ilia Topuria, undefeated, 16-0, vacate, and now he's moving up to lightweight, and he will face former lightweight champion and number 2 ranked Charles Oliveira.
Meanwhile, popular YouTuber Luke Thomas shared his thoughts on Dana White's new video and said that he announced major UFC shakeups. Luke shared that Islam Makhachev vacated his lightweight title and is moving up to welterweight, and that he will fight Jack Della Maddalena for the UFC welterweight championship at a later date. The lightweight title now vacant. Thomas shared that UFC 317 will feature Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira to crown a new champion during International Fight Week.
All right, folks, not a moment to lose. Let's get right into it. UFC President Dana White making a series of announcements about huge fights headed your way. Let's talk about them. Okay, first and foremost, number one on this, Islam Makhachev has vacated his title at lightweight. He is now up at welterweight. They did not give any date, but UFC President Dana White saying at a further date and time to be announced, Islam will fight Jack Della Maddalena for the UFC welterweight title. But as it pertains to the immediate schedule, UFC 317 will be headlined, of course, International Fight Week, by Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Oliveira for that vacant UFC lightweight title. You heard me right. So we had kind of expected this. We were waiting to hear the results from UFC 3.
Furthermore, Luke added that Charles Oliveira aims to reclaim gold, while Topuria looks to establish himself at 155 after a strong run at featherweight. He added that the shift was triggered by Della Maddalena's win, setting up this exciting title reshuffling. Luke also mentioned that the fight was supposed to be between Ilia and Islam, but Bilal Muhammad lost to Jack Della, so Makhachev will be moving up now.
Jack Della Maddalena was going to win, and if he did, Islam would move up. If not, Bilal would stay champion, and then we probably would have gotten Islam versus Ilia. That didn't happen. The former did. Della Maddalena wins, so he's the new welterweight champion. As I mentioned, he'll fight Islam at a time to be determined later on this calendar year. So it left the belt vacant, and because the belt is vacant, we knew that Ilia had been kind of teed up for it, and Charles Oliveira was kind of the guy that was mentioned. So there you have it. Charles Oliveira, by the way, a former UFC lightweight champion, trying to get back after it. He will do so against Ilia Topuria. This, of course, will be International Fight Week, June 28th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Let me put this fight card up on the screen. This is a graphic.
On the other hand, Islam Makhachev's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, talked about why Islam vacated the lightweight belt and mentioned that he had beaten everyone in the division. He added that Bilal had a splendid fight against Jack Della, and he will be back soon, but it's time for Islam to claim the welterweight throne.
Listen, obviously, if Bilal were to win, Islam was never going to fight Bilal, and he's going to stay in the division. But now, Jack win after unbelievable fight Bilal put on, and I think Bilal gained so much fun from this fight, and he'll be back. There's no doubt in my mind. But Islam have beaten everyone in this division. Literally, Dan Hooker, Arman, Charles Oliveira. He's on a 15-fight winning.
Furthermore, Ali said that Islam is still the champion of the lightweight division, and Charles and Ilia can fight for the title, but he has never lost to anyone. He mentioned that he only vacated the belt to move on and face Jack. Ali also added that Belal had an off night against Jack, but he will return to the octagon soon enough and learn from his mistakes. Abdelaziz commented that Islam was never going to fight Belal for the belt, so it has become easier for Makhachev to go all out now.
Second title Islam. And the reason was he wasn't going to do it because Belal was the champion, right? And, in the UFC, it was like, even I was talking to Dana, and he's like, if anybody deserves, Islam can do whatever he wants. And if Islam go up, he's the champion. You have these two guys, Charles Oliveira and Ilia, fighting, and they can fight for the title. But everybody knows who's still the champion of this division, because he never lost the title, right? Now Islam get to fight end of the year, fight Jack Mandalena, who's a really good fighter. Give credit where all credit due, and I just think Belal, absolute warrior. He just have a little off night, and I believe he can still beat Jack. It was very close fight, but right now Islam he's gonna go fight for a second title, well deserved. Nobody in the UFC right now in any division doing what Islam Makhachev do. Finishing guys on this level, putting on unbelievable fight.
Moving on, during a discussion with Cam Hanes, UFC commentator Joe Rogan expressed high admiration for MMA fighter Ilia Topuria, describing him as both a formidable competitor and an exceptional talent. He praised Topuria's striking ability and overall skill set, recalling his commanding victory over Bryce Mitchell, where he completely overwhelmed his opponent. Rogan also highlighted Topuria's triumph against the highly resilient Josh Emmett, emphasizing how effortlessly he secured the win.
So with this extra 10 pounds, how much better do you think you'll be able to perform inside the octagon? Because I would imagine physically, as good as your performances were, and they were spectacular, your body could not have been operating at 100%.
You are gonna see me at 155 that I'm gonna touch someone and I'm gonna take his lights out. I don't need to touch his chin. I just touch his head and it will explode. I feel so powerful at that weight class, so stable in the ground. Like, do you wanna wrestle? Let's wrestle. No problem. And I have the gas tank for 5 days, not 5 rounds.
He hits mitts like a world champion boxer.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah, that's
clean.
crispy.
Clean. Everything,
But-
no wasted.
On the other hand, Ilia Topuria discussed the advantages of moving up to the 155-pound weight class. He reflected on how his body had not been operating at full capacity in previous fights, despite delivering impressive performances. With the added 10 pounds, he claimed to feel significantly stronger and more stable, asserting that he could end a fight with a single touch. His comments suggested he was fully prepared and highly motivated to compete against top fighters in the division, including Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira.
So with this extra 10 pounds, how much better do you think you'll be able to perform inside the octagon? Because I would imagine physically, as good as your performances were, and they were spectacular, your body could not have been operating at 100%.
You are gonna see me at 155 that I'm gonna touch someone and I'm gonna take his lights out. I don't need to touch his chin. I just touch his head and it will explode. I feel so powerful at that weight class, so stable in the ground. Like, do you wanna wrestle? Let's wrestle. No problem. And I have the gas tank for 5 days, not 5 rounds.
On the contrary, Ilia has been gearing up for his fight with Charles Oliveira and doing more than 12 reps of 100-meter sprints non-stop. He is building his stamina to prepare for the elite style of Charles and is using pad work to enhance his striking ability. Meanwhile, Charles Oliveira reflected on the moment he learned about his upcoming fight, describing the excitement around him as training ended and he received an outpouring of messages. Oliveira emphasized staying focused and committed to the goal of becoming a champion. Rather than concentrating on his opponent's moves, he and his team planned to analyze Ilia Topuria's style to strategize accordingly. He believed in his power and was determined to fulfill his promise of regaining the championship belt, which he felt never should have been taken from him.
And everyone started yelling, the kids screaming and all that. Training had just ended and so on. I grabbed the phone, saw thousands of messages, went straight to Diego. That's it. Let's go. We're ready. 46 days. 46 days for this belt to return where it never should have left. We'll focus on what matters, stay sharp, and make it happen. I'm not fixated on their moves, but on what we can bring and take. My team will map out Tupula so we can plan our game. My focus is what I'll bring to the fight. We're more than ready and prepared for this fight, right? Tough opponent, but I know my power. I'll go all in, fulfill my promise, and get that belt.
During a recent interview, Oliveira welcomed a clash with Topuria for the lightweight belt to decide who will be the next king of the division. He has high hopes in his skills and said that he can knock out Topuria. Charles stated, "Whoever I get told to fight, I'm going to fight. I have nothing but respect for Ilia Topuria, but this is lightweight. It's the most difficult division you have ever seen, and I have power in my hands. I believe in my jiu-jitsu, but I believe that I could knock Ilia Topuria out." Moreover, Charles Oliveira slammed Ilia Topuria in an interview and said that he is getting a bit over his head just because he has won a belt. He acknowledged Topuria as a tough and dangerous fighter who backs up his talk with strong performances. However, Oliveira added that Topuria is coming up to a very dangerous weight class. He also emphasized that the lightweight division is exceptionally tough and he won't get past him anytime soon.
Ilia Topuria cara que duríssimo, cara que fala e vem fazer.
Ilia is a tough fighter. Someone who talks the talk and walks the walk. He's doing things, and I can see why he would want to challenge people. And I think a lot of people, he would be obviously a tough fight. And I think that what happens is a lot of fighters, whenever they get a belt and they wrap that, they have that belt wrapped around their waist, they start thinking up and down in the divisions, and you want to challenge things. But I think you have to be very careful when you're coming up to lightweight, because this is tough. This is a very tough division. But at any rate, I think he's a very tough and very dangerous guy.
Meanwhile, Kamaru Usman talked about whether Ilia Topuria could defeat Charles, keeping in mind Khabib's comments that Topuria should fight another contender rather than Islam. Usman voiced his belief in Topuria's skills, pointing out that Oliveira frequently suffered knockdowns in his fights. He asserted that Topuria's relentless approach, which effectively targets both the head and body, would provide a crucial edge. Kamaru was convinced that Topuria wouldn't just inflict damage on Oliveira, but would ultimately secure a decisive finish.
That ain't fire kush.
Yeah, 100%. This is exactly how I feel. Exactly how I feel. Yes, I do believe Ilia Topuria can win that fight. You see it. Charles Oliveira gets hurt in a lot of fights, and he gets dropped in a lot of fights. And so now you throw in a guy like Ilia that doesn't just hurt you, he will get you out of there, that mixes up the attack, goes to the body, goes to the head. I think Ilia is the favorite in that fight. Taking nothing away from Charles Oliveira. Charles is very, very dangerous, and Charles is very, very good. But I think Ilia is a favorite in that fight, and I think 100% he goes out there and he gets through Charles Oliveira. You 100%, he's next for that. But Khabib is also right.
Meanwhile, Joe Rogan and Michael Bisping trashed Charles Oliveira in a podcast and said that even Conor McGregor can beat him, despite having a long layoff. They discussed the possibility of Conor returning to fight Charles for the UFC title. Rogan speculated on the implications of McGregor winning and becoming champion again, expressing disbelief at the potential scenario. Despite uncertainties, Bisping and Rogan agreed that McGregor's knockout potential might just upset Oliveira, and Topuria would have even greater chances for an upset.
There's a potential that Conor comes back, beats Charles Oliveira, and becomes champion again. Because that is, and then that's, I don't think I can deal with the world if that happened. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Ireland would have a fucking parade that would last a month long.
But it might happen.
It might happen. Listen, if Conor connects on anybody's mug,
that's what I'm saying.
You never know.
He's still got that left hand. He's still got power and speed in
what Firas Zahabi calls the touch of death.
Is that what he calls
it?
That's
what Firas Zahabi is. He's got the touch of death.
Kind of
It
does.
really does.
Kind of does.
Really
it's
does.
diminished a little bit because it
Maybe.
happens.
Moreover, Luke Thomas added that the fight community had hoped for an Islam versus Topuria clash, but fans still get a thrilling matchup for the vacant title with strong supporting bouts. Luke mentioned that while Islam versus Topuria was the dream match, Topuria versus Oliveira is still explosive. Islam's move to 170 pounds brings new excitement, with potential matchups against top welterweights like Madalena and other champions. Moreover, Ali Abdelaziz said that Islam will be bigger, better, and stronger in the welterweight division since he wouldn't be weight drained anymore. He mentioned that nobody has done what Islam has done in the UFC, knocking people out with head kicks and submitting champions within seconds, but it was his time to move up and now face Jack Della for the gold. He added that Islam will prove to be a big problem for all the guys at welterweight.
Makhachev. And I believe is going to be a problem for the whole division, honestly, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like I always thought for Islam, he wanted that like moment that like Daniel Cormier and Amanda Nunes and everyone had like the 2 belts over his shoulder when he talked about, you know, getting the 2nd belt. Was that ever discussed where, you know, he could just keep it, or is the reason he's vacating because maybe he's not going to be fighting at lightweight ever again?
He will have the 2 belts on top of his shoulder because he's still the lightweight champion. It doesn't, you know, listen, you have 2 guys fighting. Like when Habib retired as a lightweight champion. You understand? Sure. As a pound for pound number 1 king. Islam is the pound for pound number 1 king. You understand? He never.
Furthermore, Ali added that Islam never lost the title, and he is just like Khabib Nurmagomedov and will retire as the king of 2 divisions. Abdelaziz said that the whole situation got complicated when Belal won the welterweight belt, and it was certain that Islam was never going to fight Belal, no matter what. Ali said that Ilia and Charles can fight for the belt, but it's still Islam's belt, and he will always be undefeated at lightweight.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like I always thought for Islam, he wanted that like moment that like Daniel Cormier and Amanda Nunes and everyone had like the 2 belts over his shoulder when he talked about, you know, getting the 2nd belt. Was that ever discussed where, you know, he could just keep it, or is the reason he's vacating because maybe he's not going to be fighting at lightweight ever again?
He will have the 2 belts on top of his shoulder because he's still the lightweight champion. It doesn't, you know, listen, you have 2 guys fighting. Like when Habib retired as a lightweight champion. You understand? Sure. As a pound for pound number 1 king. Islam is the pound for pound number 1 king. You understand? He never lost his title. You understand? Mm-hmm. You know? And you never know. Maybe Islam, the deal was if Belal win, Ilia and Islam will fight. That was the deal. And, you know, and if Islam can get a chance to fight with title. But there was no conversation Islam was going to fight Belal. This was never going to happen. With these guys, brothers. Habib wasn't having it. I wasn't having it. Islam wasn't having it. We would stick to our word. And as you know, all these guys, they stick to their word. And everybody supports Belal. You know, everybody supports Belal. Doesn't matter what anybody wants, how much money they want to make. It's just, but you know, the result was different than we thought it was going to be. And now Islam get a chance to fight for the welterweight title. And I believe Islam will be the welterweight champion. And he'll be a double champion, you know?
Yeah. I see some people asking, like, since Dana announced the news, like, and you kind of said there, if Belal had won, he would have fought Ilia. Why didn't he fight Ilia on International Fight Week and then maybe fight Jack, like, later in the year or something?
Because in a way, like, listen, if he have to fight Ilia, no problem, he would have fought Ilia. But when Islam go out there and finish Ilia, he was almost 4-1 underdog, favorite, right? People are gonna say, and Ilia is a very skilled fighter. I'm not taking anything away from him. You know, he's always, I respect him as a fighter, you know. But you know, if Islam go there, starch him or beat him, right? The people are gonna say he beat a 45-pounder, right? He beat Alexander Volkanovski 2 times. He beat a 45-pounder. You understand? He have nothing to gain. I beat an Ilia. It's a great big, but he had to. Belal won. He would have fought in Ilia 100%, right? Yeah. But in a way, Islam right now chasing legacy, and honestly, the UFC was great. I was last night to the office to probably 4 a.m. Tried to get stuff done. The one thing, Islam will fight this year, regardless Mandalina injured, not injured, hurt.
Additionally, Luke Thomas commented that Islam can't become a double champion now that he has vacated the title, but his name will be written in the history books as a champion who held titles in 2 separate weight classes. He mentioned that BJ Penn was the only guy who had a double champion status, which is extremely hard to do. Do you think Ilia Topuria can beat Charles Oliveira? Do you expect a submission or a knockout? We would love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments section below and subscribe for more content like this.